shooting and editing on your iPhone. Recently, I've been posting a lot more photos I've taken on my good old iPhone here, and I've been getting a ton of comments and questions about how I both shoot and edit those photos. So today I figured I would just give you guys a full breakdown about how I go about shooting and both editing all on my iPhone. Now, this process is probably gonna seem a lot more simple than you guys might have imagined, but we're only gonna need two things. We're gonna need the native camera app and Lightroom Mobile. So when I'm shooting, all I'm gonna be doing is using the native camera app, and if anything, I am just going to be dragging the exposure slider down slightly. I know there are different apps out there that you can use to turn your phone more into like a DSLR type thing, but I personally never felt the need to use that, and I've always just used the native camera app, so that's what I'm gonna use for this video and going forward. Okay, now it's time for the fun part, editing. All right, so for this example, we're gonna be using this photo I shot in Glacier National Park a couple summers ago. First things first, as you guys know, I love adding saturation to my photos. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just bring some of that color back. Let's go with about plus 35 there. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of warmth just to really emphasize that it was sunset and get the nice warm tones in this photo. I am gonna mess with the tint a little as well and add a little bit of purple. Now that we have the colors dialed in, to start off, let's hop into the light tab. Go and add some contrast back into this photo. Bring the highlights down and then bring the shadows up. Bring those blacks down a little bit. And then also bring down the whites. Next, let's hop into the effects tab, and I love adding some dehaze to my photos. So I'm gonna bring that up to probably about minus 15 there. And then I'm gonna hop back in the color tab and then head to the grading. For this photo, since it is sunset, I am going to add some more yellow-orange tint to the highlights here. Go ahead and bring that saturation down. Something I like to do is put the saturation at 100, just so I can see where the color is going to be being added and where the photo is going to be affected by the color. And obviously, once I add the saturation to 100 and add the color, I will drag that back down and actually adjust it to the slide that I want it to be on. Let's go with about plus 30 there. I think that looks good. And then next up, let's mess with the luminance a little and bring those highlights up a hair, probably to about 25. Go over to the midtones and actually bring the midtones down, and I'm gonna add some orange to that as well. Slide that up to 100 again, so just so I can see where that is affecting the photo. And I'm going to bring the saturation down and then back up just a little bit. I think that's looking good so far. And then let's go to the color mix, head over to the orange here because I think the orange is going to be up here in the sky quite a bit. Saturation, as you can see over here on the right hand side of the image, that is adding quite a bit more color into that. And then typically I do slide my oranges just a little more red. Hop over the yellow. Yellow is a very strong color in this image. So I'm going to bring the saturation up on that as well. Bring that color a little more orange, just like the oranges. Well, I guess I turned the oranges red, but you guys get the point. And then I think that looks good for the color mix. And then the final step is just going to be to add some masks. I'm gonna add a linear gradient to the top of this image here, just so I can change the sky and really bring that color back into that and add some contrast as well. Add some contrast. I'm actually gonna slide this gradient down a little bit. Contrast, bring down the highlights just to bring this kind of some more detail back into the sky. And then up the color a little bit, up that tint a hair. And then I think that looks good for this mask. And then I'm going to be doing the same thing, except I'm going to be putting one on the bottom of the image, down here where these flowers are. For this one, I'm going to be adding some contrast and bring the exposure down a little, just so the viewer's eyes kind of get naturally led up into the sky in the mountains. I'm actually gonna bring those shadows down here as well. And yeah, there we are. And obviously, my girlfriend's head is in the bottom of this picture just a little bit, so I am going to crop this just a hair. And there we go. Here is the before, and here is the after of editing in Lightroom Mobile. And you can edit your photos from scratch, but something I like to do is to throw on one of my Lightroom presets. just to really speed up the process and keep a cohesive look throughout my set. Okay, so now we have Lightroom Mobile open here. The first thing I would typically do is go ahead and throw on one of my mobile presets. This one I'm gonna go ahead and use Fever Dream. This is one of my favorites. As you guys can see, that already changes the photo a ton. Next up, I'm gonna go in here into the color tab. And since the sky is pretty blue on top, I am actually going to up the warmth a little bit of this photo just to kind of really enhance that sunset feel. And as you guys can see, this preset already added a lot of vibrance and saturation, but I might add just a little more because if you know me, you know I love having saturation in my photos. Now this photo does seem a little bright, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower the whites a little bit and lower the highlights some more, and then up that contrast. Now, as you guys can see right there, that is already affecting it a lot. And now I'm gonna go ahead and add a linear gradient here. Add one to the top of this image here. I usually do this on all of my photos, whether I'm editing on my iPhone or my laptop. This is something I do typically to every single photo. I'm gonna add a little more contrast to the sky. Bring down the shadows a little bit, and also bring down the highlights a hair. And then I'm also gonna add a little more warmth just to really emphasize that sunset light. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, but this time I'm going to add a gradient on the bottom. Stretch this out so it is nice and gradual. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go to the light tab, add some more contrast, lower that exposure a little, and then bring down those shadows. So as you guys can see, that changes the photo quite a bit. And if you guys are interested in purchasing my presets to use in your own editing workflow, I'm gonna be giving you guys a discount code. Use the code YT15 for 15% off all of my presets and editing guide. But yeah, as you guys can see, my workflow is pretty simple. I don't really do anything crazy, anything super complicated or fancy. I just have kind of found what works for me, my bread and butter, and I just stick to that. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this helped you guys and gave you something you can take in your own workflow when editing. I'll throw that link in the description down below if you guys are interested in purchasing my presets, and don't forget to use that code. But yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.